This week on the show, we are joined by Gary Ghoulish Pullen, the legendary cover artist, and Rye Barrett from In a Violent Nature. Happy Halloween. Welcome back to the Rockman Power Hour, a podcast where we talk to the most interesting people in the world of pop culture and everything in between. I am joined by my co-host, Ryan Stick. And Ryan, we are really getting ready for the Halloween spirit and the Halloween holiday, because we have put together this episode that I think a lot of people are going to be excited about. I never thought that these two guys would meet, although they've been fans of each other for a long, long time. But it's cool to get them both together on the same episode.
Yeah, that's actually the specialty of the Rockman Power. No, I take that back. That is the specialty of Jason Rockman. For as long as I've known you, you've been the connective tissue, the Kevin Bacon, if you will, between many people finding each other and, friendships forming. So good for you, son.
Yeah, well, okay, thank you. But it's an interesting one because I've known Rye Barrett for a long time. He did a bunch of movies with my friends at Black Fawn Films, and he also is just a great actor. He's been really, really working hard for years in the indie cinema universe, especially in Canada. And this has just been a breakout year for him by getting the lead in A Violent Nature, and I'm so happy for him because no one's more deserved of that. That success than him. And when we found out that Gary, who we met this past summer at Fantasia, had done the poster for In a Violent Nature through Made by Mutant, it was just a slam dunk to put them together. So when they both accepted, even on this short notice, it was great. So I'm really, really happy about that. I want to also let you know that, and I think I did talk to you about it this weekend. This past weekend, we were in Winnipeg for Comic-Con, and the owner of Made by Mutant is Elijah Wood.
Yep.
He's the guy that kind of parachuted in and saved, whatever was left over from Mondo, grabbed the creative force behind Mondo, the guys who do posters and soundtracks, and helped, get them off the ground. And, when I showed him that we were going to be doing an episode with Gary and showed him his, talked about his poster, he was like, oh yeah, man, I love him. And I talked to Gary about it after. So it was just nice to see all these universes kind of colliding,
And when you said Mondo, a little bell rang in my head. One of my prized possessions. I'm not going to waste anyone's time by going to run and get it, but Montreal produces a beautiful, incredible, underrated video game called Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and that is not based on the movies. It's based on the characters. It's its own thing. Star-Lord named himself after his favorite band. So essentially, it's like if I get blasted into space and I call myself like Green Day or something, it's the same shit. But the soundtrack is not only like an incredible original orchestration, but also Star-Lord, the band, was Steve Zhikowski wrote and co-wrote and co-produced the original amazing Star-Lord soundtrack, and Mondo put it out on vinyl. And it's one of my most prized fucking possessions. So Mondo needs to exist, and I'm so glad that Elijah Wood swept in and saved it from Mordor, because seriously, we fucking need that.
Yeah, no, I know. And he's such a good dude. He's so, he's just such a kind dude. You see it when you meet him in person. And it was really, really cool to be able to share that with him. The timing was perfect. So happy Halloween, everybody. I hope you guys are excited about this one. Before we get too far and throw this episode at you, we want to let you know that we are always grateful to our friends at Heartbeat Hot Sauce, the heartbeat of the Rockman Power Hour. Check out this one. This is the Poirier Louisiana style hot sauce by the incredible fighter Dustin Poirier in collaboration with Heartbeat. And you can get this right now at heartbeathotsauce.com. Use our promo code Rockman20 and get 20% off your entire order. Big thanks also to our friends at Studio House Designs and to Audio Technica Canada for providing us with these great headphones, microphones, and all this stuff that helps the podcast sound and look as good as it can. All right. Are you ready, Ryan? You ready to do this?
I'm so ready that it's making me violent.
Let's do it. Rye Barrett from In a Violent Nature and Gary Ghoulish Pullen right here on the Rockman Power Hour. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Rockman Power Hour, and we're very excited to have an awesome panel, if you will, of very, very talented Canadians that are making their mark everywhere, nationally, internationally, and worldwide on the horror scene. And I'm really, really happy to call both these guys friends. There was a movie that came out this year called In a Violent Nature that really struck a chord with horror fans, especially indie horror fans, and ended up becoming this thing that people were like, have you seen it? If you haven't yet, what did you think? And when you do see it, tell me what you think. And what did you think of that kill? And it was talked about a lot. And I got invited to a really, really early screening of it. I didn't go because I had a bunch of shit going on. And then I found out that my buddy was the killer. And when I found out, I got really, really excited because it's someone's career who I've been following for a long, long time. Someone I met over a decade ago with another close friend of mine, Gabe Carrere. And I was just really giddy that this guy was getting his just desserts finally. Fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, another person that Ryan and I have met recently, who were big fans of, Gary Pullen, did a poster for this movie. And I reached out to Gary and I was like, what'd you think of the movie? He goes, I fucking loved it. And I was like, well, what if we could get the guy who played the main in the movie on our podcast and we could all discuss this film and horror in general for Halloween? And he was like, let's do it. So without any further ado, let's bring in our panel this week. My co-host Ryan Stick, who of course is always with me. He's literally the Robin to my Batman. And we've got Rye Barrett from In a Violent Nature. And we have got Gary Pullen, artist extraordinaire. Guys, thanks for accepting to do this on a Sunday. We're recording this on a Sunday afternoon at noon. So that shows you the dedication that these gentlemen have to doing this. Guys, thanks a lot for being here, man. It really, really means a lot.
Oh, no.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having us.
First off, I just want to ask, Rye, and we have two Ryans on the panel, so we're gonna call one guy Rye because he goes by Rye. We're gonna have Ryan. Rye, this must be crazy for you because I know firsthand how hard you've been working in film, how you've been literally I don't want to say slugging it out, but you've been working your craft for a long, long time. And to have something like this hit, because it has hit, let's face it. I mean, it's become, it's got like that first Terrifier vibe where people are just talking about it and cannot wait for number 2. How does that feel for you as an actor? It must be really, really fulfilling.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's really fulfilling, and it's kind of one of those things where you make the movies over the years, and you do it because you love it, and it's just the thing that you've kind of become addicted to at this point. And you kind of, one of the hopes is that one of these films will be the one that will catch, and by one catching, it helps the other, and it helps the other, and it just kind of layers on top of that. So it's. For this one to catch the way it did, and you can never predict it. You can't expect the things that come along with it too. It's just been some of the people I've gotten to meet and some of the places I've gotten to travel to and stuff has just been unreal. So I'm just kind of soaking it in because you don't know how long it's going to last too, right? It's
yeah, no, definitely. And Gary, you can understand that too, being a guy who's been, you've been illustrating and designing for years. When you had your first thing that drew a lot of attention to you, it must have been mind-blowing.
Yeah, for sure. When you start working on like officially licensed stuff that are big titles, or you're working with big movie directors and whatnot, it is mind-blowing. I mean, we grew up watching this stuff and loving this stuff, and now all of a sudden you're like personally interacting with some of the people that created it, and they've seen your work because you got that job because they saw your work, and that is wild too. The fact that here I am creating artwork for my favorite things, and I really am a one lucky duck. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of us know that vibe too, because we're all grinders. Everybody on this panel has worked really, really hard. All of us have achieved various degrees of success in whatever we've done. But I'm always cheering for the underdog. I'm always cheering for the guy that gets a shot. So I'm really happy to have both of you here with us today to talk about the things that we love. Ryan, you got to watch the movie this morning.
Okay, we're referring to me now. Okay,
yes.
Cool. It took a second. I had a party last night that we were planning for months, and it happens, and then, like habit, it's like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and people are starting to, finally go or whatever. But I got up really early. I don't know why. Just got up really early because my dog had diarrhea for like a month. So we're so used to getting up early.
We fucking needed to know that.
No, it's all part of the story, Jason.
Okay.
So I wake up in the morning and I'm like, dog shit. And I'm like, no, there's none. I should probably watch the movie now. Hey, it's still dark outside. So I put it on. And the thing about this movie is that I think there's going to be a difference between the people that kind of casually watch horror movies and the people who have seen every horror movie under the sun waiting to see something new, or waiting to see that a brick they are so used to seeing has another side. And as I watch this movie, I'm like, this film is a cross to me at least, between like what it's like to play Friday the 13th, the video game in which you're Jason the entire time and you're trying to catch these kids or you're trying to get to them, and your perspective, which is also a throwback to Michael Myers in Halloween 2, where they had that great POV of him going into the houses and whatnot. But I'm watching this and I'm like, this is so fucking cool that like traditionally Jason from Part 6, directed by the wonderful Tom McLaughlin, Jason never ran again. So there's a pace to the walk, but there's also a menace and there's a presence. And even though you're not seeing faces and he's not quoting Shakespeare, you feel there's a heaviness and a weight to this walk. And as it's being shot, it's kind of like whenever the things do happen, whenever the kills do happen, they seem so much more extraordinary because it's almost kind of like you've been listening to elevator music and you were surprised by Slayer. like for a good minute straight, you hear Rain and Blood and you're like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck? So, and also I always think people are watching me in the dark woods, so that didn't help.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah, so I'm watching this movie and I'm just like, this is almost kind of like an old school 80s slasher if it was directed by Gus Van Sant in like 1999 or something.
I like that.
And that's super cool because we're so used to the titillation of editing and like to make us feel something. But in the 1970s, we all know they would hold on shots for 5-6 minutes at a time to just get into your skin. And that's what this reminded me of too. It took its time to wow you. And there's this one, beautiful scene where you see another side of the creature. And I just got to say, I have to compliment you as an actor, because anybody who isn't talking and showing their face and doing all this stuff, I mean, they ruined a Judge Dredd movie in 1994 because the film studio did not want to have Sylvester Stallone wear a Judge Dredd helmet the entire time. You know what I mean? To obscure his Stallone-ness in any kind of way. But the fact that even in your fingertips sometimes there is an entire performance there, that is a skill set that is not nearly celebrated enough in a world where we never shut the fuck up. We never, like I'm doing right now. I said more
Thanks a lot, man.
in the last 2 minutes than probably everybody did in the movie, period. And one more thing just about that movie. I love how a lot of the performances are happening off camera and you're kind of forced to just listen to what they have to say as opposed to how they're saying it, what they're doing it, what they look like when they're doing it. Usually it's like in a horror movie, you're like, oh man, do we really have to hang out with all these stupid teenagers waiting for someone to kill them? And in this case, you're like,
You don't.
yeah. And also, I got to say that this movie starts off with kind of like, there's this poor animal corpse like with a trap, and you're like, fucking hunters. I wish someone would do something. Oh my God, someone's doing something about it. He's doing something about it. Whoa, cool. Yeah.
That's
so
like
anyway.
a TCM moment with the armadillo too. I like that scene.
Yeah.
Totally,
So anyway,
totally.
that's what I got to say about the film. I thought it was great. I thought it was really cool, and I was as a kind of a person who thought I know everything about horror, I've seen everything, and I can tell everything that's going to happen a mile away. It was really nice to be shown the other side of the coin and be surprised by it.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those movies. Just let me jump in there. Sorry. I
please.
feel like it is one of those movies where they are showing you something new, and it's like that's what I want to see as a horror fan. We've seen it all. We've seen zombie movies done to ad nauseum. We've seen J horror movies done to ad nauseum. All these kind of films. When they show something different, you're going to get a reaction, and I'm on the side of that. I absolutely thought it was a brilliant take on slashers. Anyway, Rye, I'm sorry. I know that
I,
you talk about this.
I was just saying that, like, when you're working with people like Nash and Peter Complexity and Shannon Hanmer, like they're the team that put this all together. And obviously Nash is the one who wrote and directed it. But these are people and myself. I mean, I'm also a massive horror fan, so I've seen everything too. But they've seen everything. So like this film was put together for people who've really gotten into seeing all the things and then putting all the nods and all the love in there for those specific there's all those moments. There's a chainsaw moment. There's a Jaws moment. There's all these little bits and pieces that are there for people to pick up and like appreciate.
And probably one of the most vicious original kills I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, man, like, do you remember when they told you about, again, and there will be some spoilers in this, so we should just let people know, like, if you haven't seen the movie yet, we'll try not to do too much of spoiling, but there is one kill.
There's a bunch of spoilers on YouTube already, so
fuck it. All right. So there's a kill. The kill with when the girl's doing yoga on that cliff. I mean, first of all, it's beautifully shot. It's just such a nice shot. It's so, it's so wide and open. And then when you go in there and you literally pull her fucking head out through her fucking, like, it was just, I had to watch that over and over again. Do you remember when you were doing that? Like,
yeah, that was a whole process like that. It took days to get that like finally finished, and there was big gaps in time actually when we had to go back and kind of finish the practical stuff because we shot a lot of the lead up stuff and then we were losing light and it was going to take too long to get to a certain point. It's kind of one of those things where it's like construction. If you're pouring concrete, once you start, you kind of just gotta keep going. Of course. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, and it was. For me, it was a lot of fun and just so interesting watching. Like, I'm such a fan of practical effects and the artistry behind that. So getting to see them piece that together, and like I'd step in and do one movement, and then I'd step back and just watch them do their thing and add blood, and there was like all these different types of viscosity of the blood and different colors, and they just would keep adding things, and it would be one little shot and then step away, and it really is like it's like sculpting. A piece because it just takes time and effort and it's all designed ahead of time, so it all just has to be meticulous and it's a lot of fun watching people just pull that together.
Also the when the where they're sitting by the fire and there's that circling shot for a while, and then when they go to do that selfie and you're just in the back. Like you're in the back with it. It's so fucking creepy, man. I love it. Like, cause you just see you in the back and you're like, if you're watching that, let's say you were watching it during the day and you weren't in a perfectly lit room or, your TV was a bit too dark, like you could miss it. And that's what I loved about it. Like it's something that could be missed if someone wasn't really paying attention, but you feel the payoff because you're so like when you're watching it and you're so like into what you're watching and you're watching everything to see what's going to come up. And then when I see that little silhouette in the back, it was fucking great. It was really, really good.
And that's one of the, like Nash had a bunch of, kind of little rules and I mean, it was with the whole team. So it was like with him and Pierce and like the producing team was involved in all of that too. And just kind of, that was one of the things where it was like, when it wasn't from sort of behind Johnny's perspective, where like you're basically hanging out with him, you had to always kind of feel him in the frame. That was kind of one of the rules. So even when he's not there, you're either you see him in the background or a piece of him or something. And then, if he's not there at all, you're still supposed to fully feel him there. So I think they pulled that off.
I was staring at the woods and shots you weren't even in, just convinced something was going to flinch.
Yeah. Well, it's it was unnerving. Yeah, you're unnerved.
Those moments of silence and there's no music too during a lot of the scenes too, which I thought really makes it unsettling because I don't know, if you're being murdered in the woods, there wouldn't be a soundtrack. You know what I mean? Like, think about that. It would be nature sounds. You'd be hearing birds chirping, and I don't know. I thought it was cool that there was no music.
They did a great. The sound design is phenomenal.
Sound design's phenomenal. Yeah.
Here's a question I've never thought I'd ask another human being, but now here we are. If you were getting murdered in the woods and you did have a choice over your soundtrack, what would you be hearing as you're going down?
I don't know. It's got to be Goblin for me or something. Like
maybe some. Fuck. I mean, that's a good question. Overkill, maybe.
Yes.
Great
one.
Probably Faith No More.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. like from out of nowhere. Dun, dun. I don't
There
know.
you go.
I think I'd pick Stop right now, but it's Spice Girls because maybe the killer would be giggling so hard his killing me would be less effective, and I'd be able to get away.
Do you guys remember? I'm sure you all remember. You remember the story of Luca Magnotta from Montreal, the guy.
Yeah.
So Luca Magnotta was this guy that literally killed a bunch of people in this apartment building,
Yes.
right off of on DeCarry, and it was really creepy because he recorded his killing and he used New Order, True Faith as the background while he was doing it, and it was just so fucking unsettling. So yeah, it's anyways. Yeah.
He's the don't fuck with cats guy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but I remember that happened because we were from here when that was all going down in real time. Before that documentary, I remember all that. I don't think they really talked about the true, like, the New Order song as much as they did in the documentary. They revealed that, but oh man, it was just unsettling. So yeah, music to kill to. That's an interesting one.
Oh, that's a good idea for a comp.
So for you, Gary, do you remember? Well, obviously you remember because it wasn't that long ago. But where were you? Where did you get to see the movie? Did you see it cinema?
Yeah,
or did you,
I actually saw it in the cinema. Yeah,
Okay.
because they played it at the Playhouse here in Hamilton. So I went with some friends, and yeah, we watched it, and yeah, it was great to see in the theater for sure. I think it definitely benefited from seeing it in the theater as well, right? Yeah, no, it was really great to see it had a short run in Canada and the U.S. too, I believe. Yeah, again, it was seeing in the theaters was amazing. I'm glad that we did that. I know that they also had a cast and crew thing too. I didn't make it to that, but Chris and Shannon were there, and they did a big Hamilton kind of cast and crew thing here too. That looked like it was a lot of fun.
So you grew up in Hamilton, and Rye, you grew up in Guelph, right?
Yeah.
So you guys, I mean, it's not like you guys are almost like you're super close to each other.
Yeah,
Had you guys ever crossed paths before?
I don't think so.
I think just
Did you ever go to
we've been
Festival
at
Theater?
same conventions and stuff like that,
Yeah.
but never actually Yeah,
Yeah, I'm from London actually. I live in Hamilton now, but I'm from London, Ontario.
Oh, so fucking
So I go there a lot too.
We're talking about music and just pacing. The walk in this film is a very specific walk, and it's almost a discipline to not walk too fast, walk too slow. How long of a process was that to figure out? Because walking is such an important part of this movie, and that's not a criticism. It's like literally this is at a killer pace. No pun intended. How did you find that pace?
that was a lot of basically just finding which point of the script we were at and what the motivation was for Johnny, and then like for everything leading up to a certain point, it was going to be basically the same speed. Like from the beginning, it's Johnny just waking up, so we're just kind of like coming into him and back into his movements. So that the beginning is just a little slower, and then we would slowly amp it up a little bit by scene. But I just tried to keep like a metronome in my head and just kind of keep it, unless Nash said probably a little bit quicker depending on this. And then obviously the scene with the horn where he goes around the house, there's like a distinct motivation there. So it was kind of just talking and figuring out and making sure. And it's funny, like watching all the slasher films and the Fridays and Halloween, and watching all those, their distinct walks, and trying not to copy any one specific one, but then trying to like kind of emulate them at the same time. It's a lot of fun, but you really don't want to just hack somebody's performance too. So it's really, you kind of got to walk that line of not being too close to something. But now, I mean, Nash knowing this genre so well too, like if he saw something, he'd let me know right away, and I would kind of correct that. So
are your shoulders that wide in person, or is this kind of like a presence? Because your arms, they don't move a lot when you walk, and that's a large presence too. Because I found, like, I was really focusing. I'm like, this is really almost feels like a video game perspective, because that's usually about how far away you are when you're playing a character on screen.
Yeah.
And so basically, like, the choice to not move the hands, where does that come from?
Basically, his question is, do you lift, bro?
Yeah, pretty much.
So I had the suit on. The suit had layers, mostly clothing, but there was an Under Armour layer that had the fake skin patches and stuff on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's a cowl that comes down. When I did wear the actual latex mask, there's a cowl that comes down across, and then the helmet would go on. But a lot of the times I just have the helmet on, so I didn't really have padding on that much, but it was
That's
also
his back, man. That's his fucking back, bro.
but I like 100%. Like I had a list of rules for the second we were start to rolling. I would puff up. I would take a deep breath. I would flex every muscle, and it was like, don't move your arms. That was one of the rules too. I just felt like it was more of a dead thing to do, to not have a swing to your walk. And
you must have been exhausted doing that, energy. No, seriously, it must have zapped you for being in that kind of a flex that whole time.
It's one of those things that like you don't really. I try not to complain about it or whatever, but it was one of those things where it's like people don't notice that you're holding that flex that whole time. So the second they would yell cut, I just kind of like relax. But I mean, they wouldn't be very long takes. There was some walking takes that were like a long hold or something, but for the most part, it's like a shorter cut, and then I could breathe and relax.
And it was great sometimes when you would see you'd see that walk, and then it would go from night to day, just as you're walking. Mm-hmm. It was so well, like it really brought you to like, oh fuck, he's been walking for a fucking long time, but it did it in such a split second that it really was effective,
And like Pierce too, who was the cinematographer. Mm-hmm. It was very much a lot of that walk and a lot of the timing and the distances and all of that was very much a dance with him, because we had to basically stay tethered and try to stay in a certain line and find the paths where there were no paths and try not to trip over roots and all that too. And anyway, he has this huge rig attached to him, and like he got a workout, and he put a lot of work in and did a great job with it too. So a lot of credit goes to Pierce.
How do you get a role like this though? Because there's no lines to audition. Like, did they say, hey, walk in front of us for like 2 hours? Like, how do you get this role?
Surprise. So there was a whole thing that happened with like, they shot about 70% of this film before we went and actually shot the version that I ended up in.
What the fuck?
Yeah. And it's the Blu-ray came out. There's actually a documentary about the making of that film and what happened, because they ran into so many issues, like from just nature, like terrible weather, and some of their crew got stuck out in the wilderness, and their DP at the time like fell off a cliff, and they lost their lead actor to an allergy that just came up out of nowhere to the silicone and the makeup. So they had to they kept throwing new people into the suit.
He got Tin Manned?
What's that?
He got Tin Manned?
Yeah.
Oh, Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz. Buddy Upson. Yeah, he was the original Tin Man makeup.
It's basically something like almost the same sort of thing. Like you can acquire an allergy by, when you're in something so often. Yeah. And anyway, that happened. And then they had other people in the suits, and it just wasn't consistent. And for being what the film was, they needed it to be that way. So they cut their losses, regrouped, and then they contacted me. We all kind of knew each other. I hadn't worked directly with Nash, but he had worked on other projects I'd worked on, and I was aware of Shannon and Peter and their work, and everyone was just kind of aware of each other. So they called me up for a meeting and just kind of like let me know the deal and what it was, and sent me the script. And I thought it was such a cool idea, and knowing these people, how talented they are, I was just all in right off the bat. So we did a couple of meetups and we did a walkthrough, and they kind of watched me. We were in a Park 8 actually. We just did like some Johnny walks and like how we would move and that sort of thing. And then that was it.
That's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Where did it get the mask? I want to talk about the mask. It's such an interesting, something we'd never seen before. Again, the fireman's mask. Like, is that something that was just already exist? Like, is it an actual real fire mask, or did they create it for the movie?
That they do exist, and it's pretty close to that, but Nash kind of redesigned it a little bit, tweaked it a bit, had to add some like leverage and some stiffness to it so it would stand the way that it would, because they fold down, like the real ones would fold down a little bit more. But it's pretty much real, but Nash completely built that and designed it and kind of retweaked it for the reshoots and stuff. So, but I can't imagine, it's like it is an actual firefighter's mask from back in the day. I can't imagine what those guys would go through wearing that in fires, because it's so hot inside there. Yeah. That I don't know how they would survive like longer than like 10 minutes.
When they were first telling Johnny's story about how he put on a firefighter's mask, I thought it was going to be a lot stupider looking, because I hadn't seen the poster yet. When I watched the movie, everything was fresh. I didn't see a trailer, nothing. So I put it on, and I'm like, that's kind of cool, because it doesn't look like My Bloody Valentine with the with a coal miner, but it kind of felt a little bit more like there's a little nod, All
For
masks,
sure.
all horror masks don't have to be hockey or William Shatner, so that's cool.
Gary, when you were asked to design the poster, I mean, I know you're a fan of the film, so where did you go to get the ideas that you did? Because the poster. So let's talk about. Yeah, I want to talk. Maybe if people don't know, we'll throw a picture of the poster up right now. So check that out. That's the poster that Gary did for this movie. Can you tell us a bit about the inspiration of that?
Yeah, really just had a few ideas. My first initial idea was sort of like he looked like a map, and it was like if you walked up to like a national park and they have like those area maps, and so the outline was the mask and some facts about the movie. Sometimes I like to do those sort of infographic type posters. And then my second idea was like this, the one that you see here, and it's sort of just like an ominous, him in the woods over the northern park there, and just sort of it had way more atmosphere, this one, and this is the direction we went in. So I just really wanted to show some atmosphere, and there's a little hidden Easter egg in the poster too, if you look close. Just really wanted to focus on the mask too. It's such a unique, really imposing, killer. So we just wanted to really feature him, and then I think there was a third idea too. So I just come up with like a handful of sketches, and I present them to the client, and then they go ahead and pick one.
Yeah, it's phenomenal too, man.
Well, Ryan, I know I'm as you were talking before we were closing up on you, I was checking out what you had on your shelf, because that's just me. And I'm like, yeah, he's got some Arrow stuff in there. And I'm like, eventually I'm going to have to ask him to bring over that media book of In a Violent Nature, because I know it's from Germany and I know I can't get it yet. And so I'm like, I'm dialed in, and I know you are too. How do you feel knowing that fucking Ghoulish Gary did something that you're in? I mean, you got to be freaking out a bit as a fan, because I know you're a fan of Gary's stuff.
Yeah. Well, me and Nash like, when something like that, I'll tag, like, and Peter and Shannon, like everyone, Pierce, we just keep tagging each other and stuff that we come across. And like, it was like, when I found out that you were doing that poster and saw it, I was just blown away. It's just one of those things where you're just like, holy shit. Like,
yeah. Fucking Gary,
I did put it I did it through Mutant, made by Mutant.
Which is the new Mondo, right?
That's right. It's basically the guys who started Mondo now are running Made by Mutant.
Isn't Elijah Wood's?
Yeah, Elijah Wood owns it. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And so
they do great
it's
stuff.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So they put out really great stuff. So I mean, I was like, this is a Canadian movie. I'm a Canadian artist. I really want to do this. And so I sort of really kind of campaigned to get it too. And I said, we got to do a poster, guys. And so they said, yeah, okay. And let's see what you got. And it was, obviously Shudder, and everyone had to see it in IFC. So I'm really glad that we got one. We got one out of the gate here. So.
We got to make sure like, so Rye, as a collector, you want everything that they fucking do for this movie, right? Like, you want to have all of it.
I mean, yeah, I don't have space at this point. I have so much stuff that I want, and I'm like, I'm just kind of waiting. We're going to eventually, we're just in a small condo right here in Toronto, but I've got most of my stuff in storage. But yeah, I just keep collecting stuff, because I'm like, all right, one day I'm going to have more wall space where I can, or like my office where I can do this stuff. But yeah, obviously I want, everything that comes out. It's just so cool, because each day or each new week or, a couple weeks, there's something new that pops up, and I'm like, well, shit, now I need that too.
Yeah.
I think with the help of Terrifier, it's kind of that was the first villain, new killer in a while, where people were kind of really, instead of remaking this or adding a part 17 to something, could we have some new killers? And this is and Johnny's a very interesting killer. I love the backstory. I love the way it was told. I like the way it wasn't overtold.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool, because I'm like, in the beginning of Sleepaway Camp 2, like 7 to 8 years of Angela's life is pretty much just summarized in about 30 seconds by some people talking around at camping, and it was good enough. And it was a major 7 years and a major transition, all that kind of stuff, but it was good enough. And I am actually interested if this franchise ever kind of does a little bit of a backstory or shows you a little bit more, because it's interesting with the whole the logger situation. You know, every time I watch any show that's from the CW, I'm like, Canada, Canada, Canada. In this case, I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know, Bigfoot Woods. It could be anywhere. But I guess that's kind of good because someone in Germany could watch it and just be just as scared, because trees and people hiding in them are scary any the fuck where all around the world.
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful area too. That was shot just outside of Sault Ste. Marie, so pretty far up north. But
Oh shit!
another classic Canadian horror film. I don't know if you guys have seen Rituals, which it was shot around that area. And
definitely
it's
got
a great
some
film.
ritual vibes from the movie too. Like it's kind of like the best of all the Canadian movies, you know. Like, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and I mean I love watching that, and they kind of actually they're fun to watch as a double bill for me at least, because I can like you see the area and just kind of recognize some stuff. But
totally,
yeah.
When you so Rye, I remember when you and Gabe did the Demolisher. That was like what, 9 years ago now, 10 years ago?
Yeah, that would have been like 2013, 2014. Yeah, around. Well, I think we shot it in 2014. So yeah,
Right.
about close to a decade. Yeah.
I remember when that came to Fantasia, and it did really, really well at Fantasia. And I was just like, fuck, man, because that movie really had an amazing vibe. There was a lot of buzz around that at that time. When you think back of the level of buzz around that to the level of buzz around this, does it kind of blow your mind? Because I mean, I'm sure back then you were just so happy with what happened with the Demolisher, and this is a whole other level. But what I'm hoping is that people go back and watch that, because that movie I think was a little ahead of its time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we were so happy with what it did when it came out too, and
sure,
and it's funny that you mentioned this too, because it's funny looking back, and actually, Demolisher and In a Violent Nature actually have some strange similarities when you match them up, and not like not that they're anywhere near the same film at all, but they strangely do have these weird comparisons that are like not intentional in any kind of way. But it's fun to, like, for me specifically, like I picked them out because obviously I know when I was there, but Demolisher was kind of good training ground for Johnny too, because it was a lot of in suit and having to like build a character and stick with the rules and that sort of thing. So it's fun seeing that, and I do hope that that's one of the things too. I hope that the love and everything for In a Violent Nature, I'm trying to share that with other stuff, so hopefully people can see these other things too that maybe they might not have come across.
Yeah, I remember when Gabe, he met me for breakfast, and he sent me, I think he gave me, or maybe it was he would send me the Steelbook from Germany of Demolisher, and I was so happy for him and for you guys, because I mean that I really like that movie, and I was supposed to be in that movie. He had cast me as one of the mechanics who gets his head smashed open, and I remember fucking Bell Media wouldn't give me the time off to go because it was during ratings. Now when I think about it, I should have quit my fucking job and gone been in Demolisher. But anyways,
you're probably better off keeping the job just to be safe.
I don't know, man. I would have been in the Demolisher with you. I could have fucking been riding your coattails. But anyways, so I want to ask you guys, just shift gears a little bit. It is Halloween season. It is October, and I just kind of wanted to do like a roundtable, not so much for me and Ryan, but more for you guys. Just to ask you a couple of questions about some favorites and stuff like that. So starting off for you, Gary, what is, and I'll ask you this too, Rye. For you, Gary, what is a must watch for you every year? Like what is something that you go back to every, like, I know some people it's more Christmas. Like, every year I watch Elf, I watch, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Are there Halloween watches for you every year?
Yeah, one of them, Session 9, for some reason. I love that movie. It's not really a Halloween, like this. I don't think it takes place around Halloween or anything, but when you get a lot of asked a lot of recommendations around this time of year, I always push that movie because it's such a cool, suspenseful, psychological horror movie, and it's it's got David Caruso in it, and it's awesome. That's definitely one of them. And then, Demons, I love that movie too. It's got the heavy metal connection too. Oh man, there's so many. It just, TCM I watch once a year. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, sorry. Yeah, I mean, Trick or Treat's a good one too. Obviously, if you want like a really good horror anthology,
Yeah.
that'll get the pumpkin spice going.
What about for you, Rye?
I love Trick or Treat too. That's another one that every year, and then I actually love the old one too, like the rock and roll one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
that one's a lot of fun. That one I usually pair that one with Black Roses, the Canadian
Yes.
kind of the demonic rock band. And then like, obviously John Carpenter's Halloween. I usually watch the first two of them, just because it's like they just bleed in, they become one film kind of thing. Even though John doesn't necessarily like the second one, but those are some definites. And then one newer one for me in the past several years that I've started to watch every Halloween is it's called The Incubus. And it was actually shot in my hometown of Guelph back in like, I want to say 78, 79, something like that.
Okay.
And John Cassavetes is in it, and it's kind of an Exorcist ripoff almost, but it's a bit of a mystery and a bit of a serial killer who done it, and it's just got this weird vibe to it, and I think I love seeing it too because it's Guelph in the early 80s or late 70s, whenever. And so it's just fun to kind of watch and see what it used to look like. And it is just creepy. It's got a cool vibe to it. And it's become one of my favorites just because it's something I didn't see a whole lot of I didn't find it until I was like in my late 20s, I think. So it's kind of become a favorite over the years.
Yeah. Ryan. Well, we know what Ryan's favorite is.
I have
Ryan.
a whole. It's off camera, but I have a whole collection of Sam stuff from Spirit Halloween, and I call that corner of the house Sam's Club. And actually, I have a Ghoulish Gary autographed Creepshow vinyl next to a giant Paul Stanley cutout, which is funny because Gary and I talked about Kiss for a good hour at a Fantasia premiere. Frontiers party. Yeah. Oh, and also just because you brought up Trick or Treat, I have
such a banging record.
Yeah. Well, I'm it's funny because I'm so excited for that 4K to come out for Trick or Treat, like that Trick or Treat, because it's been so long since I've seen it, and it's so hard to find like a decent copy to look at, to watch that isn't all grainy. But the one you're talking about, and this made me think, not that it's a yearly watch for me or anything, but when you're talking about that movie, The Incubus, and seeing stuff that reminds you of your childhood or the town you grew up in, and David Cronenberg's Rabid, was shot in a mall called the Cavendish Mall, which is in Ryan's neighborhood. And I kind of grew up going to that a lot. It was a mall that we would go to a lot. And whenever I watch Rabid, it reminds me so much of fucking like 77, like the 70s, going to that mall. Like I bought my first vinyl there. Like, I bought the Police Outlandist Amour at Discus, which was like a record chain, kind of like Sam Goody or Sam the Record Man. So yeah, those kind of watches where it's like a time stamp of where you're from. Those are the best. Those are the absolute.
It adds a whole other level to watching the film too. And actually, this is regarding you guys, your last show there too with the Friday directors, and seeing Tommy McLaughlin talk about this, and I love Part 6 so much. Like it's just it's another one that I watch every year too. And I actually just watched it the other night because I watched that. And it's like watching that movie now, I'm like, I feel like I'm getting a hug while I'm watching it at the same time after hearing him say that. So it's like, it's got this whole other thing to it now.
Well, I'll get back to the questions, but let me ask this question to both of you. What does it feel like when you have somebody that you've grown up loving, paying you a compliment? Like I know for you, Rye, recently you posted about, Tommy obviously on our show, but then Stephen King saying how he liked your movie.
Whoa.
And for you, Gary, like tell me each who've been the holy fuck moment. I can't believe this person's paying me a compliment. And I'm sure you have a few, but like if you have to pull one that was just like the most crazy.
Probably Frank Darabont. When I was at a Mondo art show, I was in a Universal Monster Gallery show, and a lot of the Mondo artists had pieces in there, and we were standing in front of my Creature from the Black Lagoon piece and just talking about that movie and the creature suit, and that's our favorite Universal Monster movie. And then later on, I'm having dinner with the Mondo guys, and then Justin Ishmael sat down next to me and says, by the way, Darabont bought your piece.
Oh,
And you could have hit me with lightning in the chair, you know. That was definitely one of those. I'm so glad that I came to do this, and I'm so glad that I was invited, you know. So that was probably one of the bigger ones.
Okay.
It's Stephen King.
Stephen King, right? I figured it was.
Sure. Yeah, I just like I've been reading him since I was like 8 years, way before I should have been reading his stuff. But like, I've just been a huge fan for forever. I mean, as all of us, so many people are, and you know, I collect his first editions, and I've got a whole bookshelf that's just his stuff. So hearing him say that and it's just say anything, when he tweeted about it, and then he said something about it when somebody asked him about it at TIFF, and it was just it's surreal and it's crazy, and it's just like one of the coolest things you can hear from somebody like that.
And both of you having that Stephen King moment this year, like you having that, and then Gary, you doing those, editions for like, so that's cool. Fucking crazy, man. Like just two fucking Ontario dudes fucking it up with Stephen King.
No, I think Canada's really making an impression with the horror fans these days. So there's a lot of great stuff happening up here, you know. And we're bringing it to the U.S. too, like, you know. So, I work with a lot of U.S. clients. I go to conventions down there too. So, love it.
And it has been for a long time, you know. Like we obviously, you know, we talked about Cronenberg, but like there's so much talent here. It's nice to see it getting a light shine on it. Go ahead, Ryan. Sorry.
Oh, well, yeah. The name Ryan and Canadian is synonymous with success if you're not me. But there's a lot of fucking Ryans out there killing it, and they're all Canadian. So good for you, Gosling, Reynolds, and all you other
Barretts. Yeah,
Barretts. Yeah. You've entered you've entered the trinity of successful Canadian Ryan, sir. So good for you. We were talking about Jason. You're mentioning buying vinyl at Cavendish Mall, and I'm familiar with current Cavendish Mall that would never sell vinyl if their lives depended on it.
Yeah.
So based on the stores that are still left there, and I'm imagining a place back in time, and I know personally, the video stores I grew up with were almost like a safe haven. It was a passport to excellence. What are a video store that you grew up with, both of you, that was near and dear to your heart, that you watched every horror movie under the sun? You rented those 3 movies for the weekend and stayed up with your friends. Like, take me back. What was that video store?
There was a mom and pop shop right near me, and the first time I had a parent note. Hey, can I rent, Nightmare on Elm Street, Evil Dead 2, all these rated R movies. And I can't remember the name of it, but it was like right beside Brothers Variety, where you could get your Fangoria. Mm-hmm. And then I would go and rent horror movies.
Yeah. Awesome.
I always loved Jumbo Video, just because you got that. It seemed more of a mom and pop type of place, but a big place like Blockbuster, but it seemed still not as corporate. But same as Gary, actually, I had it was a mom and pop shop. It was actually my friend's parents' video store, and so we were lucky because they let us rent anything. So we got to go down there, and my parents wouldn't know what we were renting, and then we'd have sleepovers and have to ride the volume up and down, and make sure mom and dad didn't know what we were watching at like 1 a.m. So it's same thing. It was, I forgot the name of it, but we rented anything we could there.
I remember I got just once. We were really young. They rented us Clockwork Orange, and I mean, this wasn't like Freddy Krueger anymore. You know what I mean?
No.
And I was at a friend's house, and of course, I picked the movie just because it looked so weird and crazy. And the mom shut it off like right away. It's like, this isn't Bela Lugosi in a cape.
Oh no, that's a whole other fucking.
Yeah.
I have a lot of original posters, and I have this. I forget what they're called, but you guys probably know those. Maybe the posters that are thin. They're like inlays, or a lot of the older movies have them. So I have one of those, an original, and it's signed by Malcolm. And I was looking at it the other day, and I've got a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old, and they're pretty virtuous, and they're what They're the reason why the world's going to be a little bit better. And then I'm looking at the quote on the top of it, and it says, "Being the adventures of a young man whose principal interests are rape, ultraviolence, and Beethoven." And I'm like, just saying to myself, God, I hope my fucking 17-year-old daughter doesn't fucking ever read that quote and go, why the fuck is this up in the living room? Take it down.
Right. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, but especially when it came out in the 1970s, it's almost a reflection of the punk rock scene too. Like shock value is such a thing, and it carried into the 80s too. So,
all right, let me just ask you guys this last question too. So we talked about yearly watches. If you had to pick, and I know this is a hard one, what would be your absolute, hands down, when you were a kid, you got it in your bag and you were like, "Fuck yes," favorite Halloween candy?
Favorite Halloween candy? Probably a chocolate bar. If you got a full chocolate bar,
like a full size one, that house that gave out the full
banging,
one.
Yeah,
I think it was the same thing. If you knew of that one house that was giving out, the full chocolate bar, or like a full bag of chips or something, like, or the big bags, just not the tiny little ones. Something like
the full.
I remember getting a can of pop too, like a grape pop.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it was always those people that gave peanuts. Like they would fucking give you peanuts or like and
raisins.
Yeah, no, raisins. That's right in the garbage.
I got a rock.
I got a rock.
It's it's funny because we do Halloween here, and we're in the city, so we've got like a pretty good stream of kids coming, and we decorate our house. Like, we're not like crazy, but we put a bit of effort into it, and we're starting to get known as the house that gives out decent candy and have scares and stuff. We've got a scarecrow that sits down. It's got a bowl of candy in the bowl in his lap, and then if you go by, its head gets up. And it just fucking scares the shit out of these kids. So sometimes we'll put in like full-size chocolate bars, and the little greedy fucks would go, and they'll go and they'll grab it, and then they'll get scared and they run away, and they're like, but and we'll give them the choice sometimes, like, do you want to grab something from there? Or do you want to grab something from me? And
that's hilarious.
That's very saw of you. Yeah.
I actually, when I was a teenager, we actually, me and my friends, we did it a couple of years in a row. I dressed up in like a coverall, put a mask on, and then we stuffed my arms to make myself look fake. Yeah. And I sat there with a bowl of candy, and then kids grabbed, like, as long as I didn't do it to the little kids, but any teenagers or anyone a little bit older, I scared the shit out of them.
And they must have screamed.
It was a lot of fun.
It's the best.
Just based on, we were talking about childhood and the candy, what was your favorite childhood Halloween costume? Because, Ryan, I'm assuming that it's something very vision obscuring and warm.
That's a good one. Do you guys remember those? You could buy like foam latex masks. It was a 2-piece.
Yes.
And there was like a lizard guy, a skull.
Yes, I do.
And it was like, so I got the lizard guy, and it was a 2-piece with the forehead and the nose, and then the mouth, the jaw glued on separately. And then my dad helped me do it, and I was in like grade 7 maybe, and I ended up winning that Halloween costume contest at my public school, and I remember winning a Motley Crue poster.
Which one? What album? What era?
I think it was Theater of Pain. It was the Theater of Pain.
I'm
album
sorry,
cover.
man.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't the Shout of the Devil. But anyway, that was probably the one that I just remember, because like it took us forever, and then the rest of it I just wore like a burlap sack. There was no, you know what I mean? It was like this lizard guy in a burlap sack. It made no sense.
I did. Mine's pretty specific because I did it, I think, about 3 years in a row. I loved the movie Darkman, and I just loved everything about it. So the first year I did, I just immediately dressed as him. And then the next year I was like, I can do it better. So I did, I tried to do a little better. And the third year I like went full out with the, blood, and tried to do the teeth and all that stuff showing through in the eyes. So I did. Yeah. Darkman has to be the one as a kid that I dressed up as the most.
That's awesome.
That's incredible. Wow. I fucking love Darkman, pre-Sam Raimi superhero film.
Yeah. It's a good movie.
Yeah. Pre-Spider-Man Sam Raimi superhero film. It's fucking bonker. It's fucking bonkers.
Let me ask you, what do you guys have coming up? What's the few? I mean, I know you guys. I know, Rye, you're doing In a Violent Nature too, but what else do you guys have coming up each that you want to maybe give us a bit of an insight on?
In a Violent Nature 2 it's in the work. They're writing the script right now, so that's I I'm thinking we're shooting either spring, summer coming up. I don't know the full details in it. It's like script first, and then they gotta make all the special effects and everything. And then I've got a few other films that kind of just released to Beyond the Chamber of Terror. That's streaming on Tubi now. The Hyperborean, the Black Fawn Distro is putting that one out too, and it's streaming. And Cheat, that's another one from Matchbox Pictures. That one's streaming right now too. And then I just finished one with the Collingwood Film Company who did Hyperborean and Called Hero.
Okay.
That one's called Turn It Up. And it's kind of a throwback to stuff like Trick or Treat and Black Roses and like Lovecraftian stuff. It's about a rock band that opens a portal to hell and
I love
chaos begins. So it's a horror comedy, a rock horror comedy, but
nice.
There's some fun folks in that one. So I think that one's gonna be a lot of fun.
Sick. I love fake bands. I love bands that only exist in the movie.
In the movie, for sure.
And therefore, when they're playing a song, it's the only way to hear their song.
Yeah.
So that's why Sammy Kerr and everything. I mean, Fastway just played that music, but still fascinating. I've met the singer of Flogging Molly, and if I knew that was the same guy singing in Fastway, oh my God.
What about you, Gary? What do you got coming up? Or what are you working on right now?
I'm working on a couple more books with Random House. And
okay.
That's pretty exciting. And just a couple more Blu-ray covers, a couple more stuff with Arrow. So that's currently what's on the slate right now.
It's I think I know what they are too, because we won't say anything, but
you're in the business.
I shouldn't say, but
I can't
don't say anything. But if you go back 2 episodes ago, and it's always a pleasure to chat with you guys. Again, thanks, Gary, for joining us, and this all really spurred from you doing that poster. And me saying, "Fuck, man, how cool would it be to have these guys on together to talk about this movie?" So,
it's been great meeting Rye too, and thanks for staying in touch too. It's been fun.
Yeah, man,
it's so cool too. Like I actually have that. What's the documentary that's about? It's actually about poster art.
24 by 36.
Yeah, I have a copy of that, and I saw that when it screened at Blood in the Snow too, and I was a fan before that too. So it's just so cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, man. That means a lot.
Well, we're all fans of each other, that's for sure. And it's like one big fucking circle jerk. It's great. But really, guys.
And I'm watching in the woods.
Yeah, Ryan's in the woods.
But on it, but
watching us.
Honestly and sincerely, it's just so fucking good to see good people winning, man. And it really does warm my heart, and it really, really makes me happy, because life is short, life goes by really, really quickly, and when you see people that work hard, that put their fucking that pour their passion into what they do, start to get some success, and then you can tell that they're good people that are just going to continue to be great artists and just be better people because they're getting more success behind them. That's always a good thing. And I'm a firm believer that shitty people that have more attention just become shittier people, but good people that have more attention just go on to do good things and be better people. And I know that's the case with you guys. So thanks again for taking the time to do that, man.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Pleasure to be here, guys.
Yes.
What a rad chat, I got to say, between these two gentlemen, because they're both independently very interesting and very cool. And then you get them in a room. Kind of reminds me of, why parties exist sometimes.
Totally.
Or mixers or whatever. It's it sounds so oh my God, let's meet people in the industry. But really, I can think of so many things where my favorite things about parties was not alcohol related. It was finding the guy that had the Spider-Man t-shirt, finding a little quiet corner, and then all of a sudden consuming ourselves for the rest of the evening with our entire lives of comic book fandom. And in this case, it's really cool to tip each other's hats at each other. It will.
Well, yeah, and it's nice to build a community, and when you can connect people, you never know what can come from that. And who knows, maybe down the line the two of them will collaborate on something. They already kind of have collaborated on something with Rye's performance and Gary's poster. So, I'm excited. I'm excited for what the future holds for both those dudes. I mean, Gary just, he's signed to do more Stephen King book covers, which I think is so incredible. And it's funny how Ryan's a big fan of Stephen King. He's doing Stephen King book covers. They're both Canadian. Their universes are kind of already like slamming together. So to get them both on a chat, and one day they're both going to be at a horror con together, and they're going to go, "Hey, we did that podcast, man!" And that to me is that's worth the price of admission right there. So.
Yeah, we had a really cool podcast last year, like a live one where we brought a bunch of people together from different walks of life. And you know what? I've kept in touch with almost all of them. So that's really cool. It was a meet and greet, if you will. One thing I want to say about Gary, I want to give a shout out to my friend Victor, who I met for the first time at Quebec Comic Con, and he was doing graphic designs for Montreal Comic Con in the first days of it, like in the very, very beginning. And he's met Gary Ghoulish before, and he's a big Gary Ghoulish fan. But he also pointed out Gary Ghoulish's art to the dude from Reanimator. Yeah, and the guy from Reanimator ended up like praising it or whatever. Anyway, it's because of Victor. Victor is the guy that brought it up, and it's really cool. So anyway, shout out Victor. We had a great time in Quebec City, and we were finishing each other's sentences by the end of the weekend. And you're bilingual, so I appreciate it.
It's always great when you see these things, and Gary's told that story many times about how, a guy brought him a poster to get signed, and then he brought it. It's fun when that stuff happens. All right. Well, listen, all of you out there, enjoy your Halloween. I hope it's the best one ever. In Montreal, the weather is going to be super, super warm. So
for a change, remember Jason, in 2019 when they started to cancel Halloween because of rain.
Yeah. No, I remember
because
the mayor
rain. The mayor 2 days of Halloween because of rain. Yeah. Wow. I wonder if 2020 anything worse happened besides rain.
Yeah, a lot worse happened. So here we are, 2024. It's going to be in Canada, at least in Montreal, it's going to be above 20 degrees for Halloween. So that's really, really good. Right. So all of you out there, be careful when you're trick or treating. Don't get a sunburn, and make sure you enjoy all of your candy and all that other fun stuff. And it's been an absolute pleasure bringing these two guys together for you.
Yeah. You know what? Speaking of trick or treating, Melissa and I, of course, helped my sister out and my new brother, John, for their wedding. And they gave us a present. And it's something of which I've never seen before. And they've alluded that you kind of knew this was coming. So you sly dog didn't let me know a thing. But for the first time ever, Melissa and I will have been immortalized in pop form.
Yeah, I heard about those coming.
And it's adorable seeing our little names and our little. I'm holding a microphone and a Nintendo shifter. Jason, I feel seen.
Yeah, those are really cool. Your sister told me about those at your party that she got those for you as a thank you, and they're so freaking cool, dude. They're so cool. Oh yeah, those are rad, man. Those are great. Yeah, she told me about them. She showed me a picture and everything. So, that's really cool. You got a great sister.
I have the best sister, and I'm so glad that she had the best wedding. And she's married to the best dude.
Just remember, if you like this podcast, please click the link, subscribe, pass it around, let people know that you enjoy it, and let us know in the comments who you'd like to hear next on the podcast. And also, a big, big thanks to our friends at Heartbeat Hot Sauce, the heartbeat of the Rockman Power Hour. Put this on all the candy you give out to kids and watch them run away really, really fast. Because they will be burning. You imagine putting this all over some popcorn or something, but no, we won't do that. But you can use our promo code Rockman20 and get 20% off your entire order.
I believe what you're talking about is a trick.
Yeah, you don't want to do the trick to anyone; just do the treats.
No. Here you go.
And thanks to our friends at Studio House Designs. I'm wearing this Blair Witch Project shirt, and Ryan is rocking the Nightmare on Elm Street stack shirt. Love them. And thanks to our friends also at Audio Technica Canada. Thanks to all of you as well. My producer, Julia Kajerski, my co-host, Ryan Stick, and you guys have a great Halloween. Enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you next time on the Rockman Power Hour.
Enjoy the heat. Jason and I are starring a band called the Sweaty Pumpkins.
Hey, thanks so much for watching the podcast. We really appreciate your support. And if you're enjoying the podcast, click this link right over here to watch the next episode, and click right over here and subscribe. And that way you won't miss anything.